Okay. So write in the chat if you can hear me. We can hear you. Awesome, guys. So let's start seminar. So as you know, I will talk about Gel Manicure and Gel Manicure and Gel Overlay. Let's see. And let's start. So I hope you can see everything. Yeah, so these are topics. There is nail prep, how to prep the nails for lasting gel manicures and overlays, a bit about product chemistry, how different products work, such as primer and dehydrator, for example, and which one you should use them on. And then overlay versus gel manicure, which is the best depending on the nail and your client, and how to get a good durability and structure to your gel manicures. So I will just like talk, and if you're wondering about something, you can write in the chat. So I will answer your questions over there. So we'll have a small Q&A about this subject. So just going to remove this 1 second. Yeah. So gel manicure. So what gel manicure is simply a 2 coats of gel polish on your natural nails. So there are like no thicker layer, just pure your own nails with like it will be like a replacement of nail polish. So gel manicure is great for moist, oily, and thin nails, as the gel polish is very flexible. And by flexible, I mean it will like bend with your own nail, and as you might know, like thin nails are very bendable, and that's why it's suitable for thin nails. And as you might experience if you have worked with nails for a couple of years, you notice that extensions may not last as good on both moist and thin nails, or even damaged nails. Also, orified nails can be protected as the new nail grows out. You can see that on the picture here. You can see that it's overfiled from the side here, and this is really like a common thing happening. And what will happen here is that the client, or the might be the client that wants thinner nails, like narrower nails, or that a tech is trying to make it more narrower for a short nails, and you are quite limited with the short nails, so you're not supposed to find this much. But anyway, so gel manicure is great for like protect this area, because the thing is, when you have overfiled the sidewalls like this, it's quite common to get cracks from the side. It can hurt a lot, and usually it's quite hard to make this sidewall grow out again if it's not protected. As you can see, it's quite like lifted. It's like a small nail loss going on there. So it's a very difficult part. So it's great to do a gel manicure with this instead of extensions, for example. And of course, gel manicure is long-lasting nail polish. So gel manicure is like a substitute to nail polish for longer-lasting nails. It should last between 2 to 3 weeks. Gel manicure doesn't suit hard nails, and that's because it's so flexible, and you can't apply something very flexible on a very hard, inflexible nail. And also liftings by the tip or cracks may occur with gel manicure, and this can happen to also extensions, so it's not only because of the gel manicure. And also sometimes you can experience that everything is lifts off, and that's because something with the prep went wrong, something with the curing went wrong, for example. Let's take the other slide. So gel manicure. So these are the steps. We're going to look at some videos also, but I'm going to explain the steps here. So of course, you're going to start with your nail prep. And nail prep means manicure. So you're going to prep the cuticles, you're going to buff the surface, adjust the shape. And I do recommend to always make the shape not like completely straight, because if you have the edges completely straight, is a possibility that it might lift from the side, for example. So make it a little bit more rounded for longer lasting tips, for example. And when it comes to primer, I use primers on some people when doing gel manicure, not all of them. And this depends on the nail type. So if she has very thin and fragile nail, it might be that they are overfiled. I will not apply primer. I will use dehydrate the nail and apply base coat and then do my gel manicure. But if she has like moist or oily nails, then I will apply some primer. And usually I only apply primer to the free edge because you don't need that grip when you're doing gel manicure because it's so like, how to say it, like it's like no pressure for the natural nails. So usually you don't get any liftings by the skin area, but only from the tip. So I will explain how to avoid getting liftings by the tip also. So primer, it depends. I will use acid primer for most of them. And you need to work in thin layers, and that's because you get a more like nice application and a better curing. Because sometimes when you apply too thick layers, when the gel is really pigmented, you can experience that it looks like a bubble growing inside the nail and everything just lifts off. And that's because you're applied too thick layers and UV rays had no chance to like penetrate through that. So it's uncured, and uncured material is quite unsafe as you can get allergic reactions, for example. Sealing, and by sealing I mean that you apply a thin layer of all the applications you do by the free edge. And I will show you in a picture and video. And this is like essential for getting no liftings by the free edge. So it's very, very important. So if you miss doing your sealing, you can experience liftings by tip in a couple of days, I will say. And then soak off. So gel manicure is soak off able. So it's better to do a soak off than filing the material off. By doing a soak off, you will actually save the nail better, because sometimes when you file the nail, when it's like so thin material, it's so easy to go on the natural nail and make it more thin. And the more thin nail you have, the like better the extensions will last, or gel manicure, for example. So what soak off is, if you don't know, is that you simply like file off the top coat, because usually the top coats are not soak off able because they're like hard gels, as we say, and gel manicure are like soft gels, meaning that you can soak them off. So you file off the top coat and then take a cotton pad and apply some acetone to it, apply that on the nail and wrap it around with some foil. And wait for like 10 minutes and then scrape it off with a orange stick. Don't use like metal thing, because it's quite hard to the fragile nail and you can actually hurt the nail. So here are some step-by-steps. So first step, prep and prime. So you will shape your nail and have like more rounded edges, as I said. You will buff the nail to make sure it's completely matte. There shouldn't be any like shiny parts on the nail. And you shouldn't even like overfile the nail either. So it's enough to only like do a couple of strokes until it's completely matte. And then do your cuticle routine. You can do like only like a classic manicure, meaning that you only push up the cuticles and then use buff around and maybe cut small parts. Or it's like a more like a Russian style manicure when you do e-fine manicure. So it's up to you what you would like to do. And then you apply primer. You can see here on the picture, you can apply primer to the free edge or to the middle. And I will apply like to the middle also if I had like quite moist or oily nails, but it's like a normal nail, I will only apply it on the tip here. And let it dry if it's a acid primer. If you're using a acid-free primer or a bonder, you might need to cure it in the lamp. So check with your manufacturer what's what you need to do with the product. And then you're going to apply a thin layer of base coat. And I will show you the method of applying base coat on both gel polishes. And you cure inside the lamp, and then apply one layer of color, and cure, a second color, and then cure, and then top coat, and cure, and then you're done. So make sure to apply the colors in very thin layers, so you shouldn't have too much of like pigmentation in the first layer, and that's because you want to make sure that you cure the gel properly. And make sure to have a gentle pressure, and by that I mean to not like press down your brush, because the more you press down your brush, to like more harsh pressure you have, the more uneven and streaky it will look like. So having a more gentle pressure, not pressing the brush bristles down, will give you a more even and like cover the nail much better. And you will do this in the 5-point method, as I will show you next. So here's the 5-point method. So it goes from here. This is number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So first step is to seal the edge. And sometimes I seal the edge last. So it's up to you what you would like to do. But usually it's quite easy to forget. One second, guys, going to open the door for my dog. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, so usually I apply like seal the edge last, but as you can easily forget to seal the edge, I recommend that you apply it first. So apply a thin layer by the edge, cover it completely, and then take a stroke in the middle and like rub it up towards the cuticle. And I do recommend to have an angle more downward as you do this. Don't have the fingernail completely straight, because it's like quite easy to touch the skin or not going completely near the cuticles, for example. So in the middle, and then you go to the side. You can go to the right or the left, it's up to you. And slide down, and also rub a little bit towards the skin fold. And then do the other side. And then going to repeat these 2 steps, no, 3 steps, sorry, with a gentle pressure. And this will give you a more like saturation, more pigmentation to your layer. And then cure. And if needed, you can go inside here by the folds with a liner brush to make it more even and like perfect towards the cuticles. So yeah. So you repeat this with another layer, and this is the same as you do for top coat and base coat as well. So every layer should be sealed by the edge. And the next one, so let's check this gel polish application. So I apply a quite big bead in the middle of the nail. So I never start exactly by the cuticles, because you usually have quite a lot of like product on your brush when you start. So I experienced that when you start from the cuticles, it's fluid up to the skin. So I like to take that bead off in the middle of the nail and working that towards the skin fold, rotating the fingers. So make sure to always rotate your client's hands and fingers, and try not to rotate your head, because our head weighs a lot and you will experience neck problems, for example. Take quite a lot, but not too much. As you can see, this polish is like a little bit transparent, and usually when they're a bit more transparent, you can apply like thicker layers. But when you're using like really saturated colors, just like black or like darker colors, make sure to make them really thin, as they might not cure completely inside the lamp. And I seal the edge lastly, but I do suggest that you do it first. And you can see like my dabbing method here, and that's because I want to get more pigmentation in one area. So usually when you do gel application of colors and stuff, you can do this dabbing motion to get some more pigmentation in one area, because sometimes you don't get like this perfectly smooth application at once. And hold upside down to make sure the surface evens out. Anchor, and then do another layer. So you're going to repeat the steps. And have a really light pressure. So check how my bristles are not like completely down to the bottom. It's almost like I'm in the air as I'm working. So like a barely there application, I would say. And this will give you a really nice and even color to your nail. So don't do this like dabbing technique if you're using a more saturated and pigmented color. So we don't want to leave our clients with unclear material, as they can get allergic reactions and it will lift. So upside down. And then we check the surface, if there's any dust or anything before you apply. Lay it in the lab. That's my finger. So this finger is from Aliana hand. So what you can do if you're not completely happy with your surface, take a liner brush and go in vertical lines over the whole nail, especially if you feel like a lot of materials run down to the bottom, as I'm doing now. You can just drag it upwards again to the middle. And you can also use a liner brush to make your application more perfect by the cuticles, for example. So that's it, the 5-point method. And then let's see this Gel Manicure tutorial. So I start with a cuticle remover, and this is not necessary, but I feel like it's easier to remove that skin, it's more comfortable for the clients. So rubbing up and down, make sure to clean underneath the nail also, because usually you don't clean underneath the nail, and this is essential when it comes to lasting gel manicures. Otherwise, you can experience liftings by the tip. So we have quite a lot of like skin underneath, like dead skin underneath the nails. So when my clients come in for their appointment, I always ask them to clean their nails with a nail brush underneath the nails also. And then I do this procedure where I clean the nail with a tool before we start. And then I'm doing a Russian manicure or E5 manicure with a flame bead. And the purpose is to remove dead skin, so not any nail layers. And then buff the nail, and if needed, remove some dead skin, the KPNF, if it's like any excess of that, or even any hangnails. So this is how it should look like before you apply your primer. So we had oily nail tapper, so it shouldn't be any like shiny surface, no any dead skin, because if there's any dead skin, you will experience liftings as well. And then apply primer if needed, and go on to base coat. So a thin layer of base coat, sure to do one nail at a time, and do a flash cure in between. So flash cure means that you only have your finger inside the lamp for like 2 seconds to make it not completely cured, but at least hard, so it doesn't run, so you don't over cure your nails. And then work on both hands like that, and apply your color. So here I didn't film that, but I did go inside there with a liner brush to make the cuticle fold. And then we have French gel manicure. So there's a lot of videos here, guys. And I have some nice subtitles for you also. So do the manicure, clean the nail with isopropanol, which is cleanser. So for the cuticle remover, I use Cuticle Away from C&D, but I believe there's many different cuticle removers as well. And that cuticle remover is like more gel formula. Some people more like it more like watery. So it's up to you. You can also do like think like a hand bath instead of a foot bath. You can also do that before you start also. And that tool is called La Curette. You can usually find them like pedicure stores or something. Yeah, I can talk about overcuring afterwards. Okay, so really make sure to push that close to the fold. And if you're insecure about how near you can go, because you should always have like 1 to 2 millimeters of a margin between the skin, use use an orange stick to clean the area before you cure. And make sure it's completely dry. There's no dry skin behind or any cuticle left, because that will also make the gel like fluid into the cuticles. And here I'm demonstrating the French technique. So my advice when you do a French line here is that you actually wipe the nail before you do it. So you don't have the sticky layer left, because it can be quite like hard to get an even line in that case, because they will like run into each other. So it looks like you don't get an even line. And here I'm using a Gelpolish as well. So use thin layers. And I do like to use a long liner brush instead of a short liner brush. As with a long liner brush, I can be like more gentle with my pressure. And I feel like I have more control. I can see much better what I'm doing. So when I remove the shine from the nail to my buffing, I usually use a tiny buffer in 280 grit. For like more oily nails, I might use 240, but 280 is the best in my opinion. You can also use a sandpaper barrel if you want to, and I feel like it's so easy to remove too much nail layers, and you don't want to remove nail layers because we actually have like 3 different sections in our nail plate. So we want to apply our gel on the upper layer, which is the dorsal layer it's called, which is the like driest layer of them all. And if you accidentally file that away, or accidentally, you can file it away quite easily, you will go down to the middle layer, and in the middle layer we have more moisture and oils, and we can experience liftings in that case also. So here I'm using a like semi-transparent gel polish, and I'm doing like quite a lot of like small dabs. And like if we will apply this as a normal gel polish, I will never get it even. So doing that dabs is really necessary when you're working with semi-transparent gel polishes. And then finish the edges with a liner brush. And always seal. And upside down. And only for a few seconds. And depends like how runny your gel is. So sometimes only like having upside down for 1 second is enough. And a tip to know like if it's even or not is to check the light. So the light should be reflected even. But if you feel like there's a lot of like patchiness and like it goes really weird and not like even, then you might need to apply even shape the nail or apply another layer, apply some more or adjust something else. And here it's done. Let's see if there's any more questions. Where is my here? No. Okay. So we have done the how do I do this? The gel manicure section. So let's go to gel overlay. So gel overlay is almost like the same thing as gel manicure, And the difference is that you apply a thicker layer of base gel, a builder gel, a rubber base, a manicure gel, for example. And I do recommend using a rubber base or a manicure gel, as they do have, they're a little bit harder than a regular base gel, but they're not as inflexible as hard gels like builder gels are. So if you have a client that is like more to the normal side, she has like slight flexibility to her nails, but they're still not super flexible, then I do suggest using a rubber base or a manicure gel. So a gel overlay, you start with your nail prep, and here's the same thing. You start with your cuticles, you prep the surface, you apply some primer, and now when I'm applying gel overlay, I usually apply this on the whole nail, and that's because overlays, they last longer than gel manicures, and you might need more grip also because you're using a thicker layer of gel. So I apply that like normally in the middle of the nail, underneath the lanula almost, and then by the free edge. And a thick layer of that gel you're choosing. And sealing here is also very essential. So if you need, you can also shape the nail afterwards to make it more nice looking, but you should always try to make it perfect in your application to minimize the filing. As you know, filing dust is quite harmful for our lungs. And the best thing with using rubber bases and manicure gels is that they are soak off able. So if you would use a hard gel, then you cannot soak it off. So that makes it a little bit difficult when doing removals or refills. So that's why I'll always use like example Gimme Gel from Light Elegance. It's quite hard once that's cured, but you can also soak it off. So you like save the nail better instead of filing it off. So gel overlay, it's less flexible in comparison to gel manicure. It's great for thick, hard, oily, and dry nails. And cracks in the natural nail can be protected as the new nails grow out. And cracks, I mean, there's like a crack on the whole nail or the side. So that can actually protect it. So it can go out and not be like open up more. So if you will apply gel manicure only on that crack, that's not like enough protection for that. So what can happen is that the crack only like grows bigger and hurts a lot. So that's why it's quite good with gel overlay in that case. It's longer lasting than gel manicure. So gel manicure lasts 2 to 3 weeks, and the overlay can last like 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the client. So the problem with gel overlay is the lifting by the tip will often occur, as you can see on my client here. And she has a dry and oily nail tip, as you can see. And she always gets liftings by the tip because her own nails, they're so dry that like shrink in together. And some clients just have like that, even though they use cuticle oil and stuff, and we have to think about where we live. So I live in Sweden. We have a quite cold climate and very dry air. So we have a lot of problems with this. But in other countries, when it's like more humid and not as cold, you might not have these problems. It might be more lifting problems instead by skin. And gel overlay is a better choice if you have like longer nails. And by that, I mean, if you would do gel manicure on like natural long nails, it's a risk that the client will get cracks because that won't be like enough for her to like give her stability and create a durability for her. So gel overlay are better for durability and structure because you can like shape a little bit and do an apex, for example. And they can be filed or soaked off depending on the gel you're using. And also something that's good, you can also use color gels because you can't use color gels when you do a simple gel manicure. And that's because color gels are very thin and they provide like no flexibility. So if you will apply color gel on top of a thin layer of base coat, you will experience that the color gel will like crack, it will break. And yeah, so you can use that on overlays. And here's a picture. So the procedure, like it looks the same as for Gel Manicure, but the difference is here that you apply a bead by the lunula. I do suggest using applying a very thin layer of base before you apply this bead by the lunula, because the base coat will like allow it to like slide and glide and evens out more nicely, I believe. So you apply a layer on the whole nail, a thin layer, then you just drop a drop by the lunula, and the lunula is the white part here, as you can see, and then work to the sides a little bit. So what I do is usually I just like dab a little bit, just touch gently, and almost is like not touching the nail, always like working in the air. So you want to have like tail, I usually say, you want like a tail following the brush, so you know that you're not like pressing the brush inside the nail. So work to the sides and then slide it down, and you want to have more material here and less over here. And of course, you're going to make this area even also. So I usually use a liner brush to make this area nice and upside down inside the lamp. And then you can actually file these nails. And this also have to be sealed by the edge. It's very, very important. So let's see this color gel here. So I prepped the nails, and I did only apply a thick layer here because I'm lazy, but I do recommend using or applying a thin layer at first. So I apply it like unevenly to even it out with my liner brush instead. And I do like doing that on like smaller and narrower nails, because usually when you work on a client with like small nails, it's quite hard to make it like you will touch the skin and stuff. So that's why I like doing this procedure, and make sure to draw upward towards the skin fold, towards the apex. So the apex like the highest point of it, and you should always have an apex to get durability to your nails. And I like to apply it below the lunula, for example, and make sure to keep the edges quite thin, and then you can file if you need to. I usually do that when I do overlays, as the like finish looks more smooth and nice. And take away some dead skin. Usually they come up when you do your filing. Yeah, let's go back. Okay, so I usually wash, the client washes their hands, and then I do the same procedure with the color gel. So here, take quite a lot in the middle and press it towards the skin. And also here, your brush only like slide. And if you look on the bristles, now I'm like dragging it quite hard, you can see almost all color goes away. But then I will like slide over the whole nail with a very gentle pressure, as you can see I do now, and that will giving more pigmentation to the color. And if you are like a little bit scared working near the cuticles, I do recommend to like have a bigger margin and then fill in that empty spot with a liner brush instead. So it's easier for you to do that. And always seal, that's the key for lasting gel manicures and overlays. And fill in small gaps if you need it. Also make sure when you work with color gels, as they are more pigmented, to not apply them too thick, as it's a risk for undercuring, and then apply top coat in the same manner. And that's my tutorials for you guys. So I have some questions, so you can ask me questions in the chat. So is there a rubber base from Light Elegance you could recommend? So Jimmy Gel is like a rubber base, but it's more like inflexible. So if you have more flexible nails, buying like a rubber base, it's called rubber base, it's usually more flexible. I don't have anyone to recommend now. I've heard that they have a good one from Mosaic, I think. Also Jetset had really good rubber bases. So yeah. So let's talk about this overcuring and what happens. So the thing with overcuring, you don't know like exactly when overcuring happen, but I would say like if you overcure, it would like double the curing time. So let's say that you have a gel that will cure fully for 60 seconds, and if you cure it for 120 seconds, then you might overcure it. And what happens is that when like a gel that isn't cured, they have like a lot of like molecules laying around here, and they're like free. And when you apply them inside the lamp, they will react and like build together. What to say? They will like build a chain. So these chains needs to be quite long for having flexibility. So what happens when you overcure, those chains get very, very close to each other, meaning that the gel gets more inflexible. And what happens is that when the gel gets inflexible, you might experience that the gel cracks easier. It might lift easier. So that's the thing. So that's why you have to do flash cures. And by doing flash cures, for example, if I will do one hand on a client, I will do little finger first, go inside the lamp for 2 seconds, take it out, do the second one, 2 seconds inside, and go like that. And then I cure them all together. So usually like the first nails might get like 30 seconds over cured. And I haven't experienced any problem with doing that. But I do recommend, like when you're working with builder gels, you have to be more careful with not over curing. So I know some people like curing one finger at one time, but it's quite like hard for a client to do that. And it might be that because the lamp is like formulated to like they have placed their like beads or what to say inside the lamp to get a good curing on like the different fingers. So if you might only take inside the index finger, then you might not cure it properly if you apply it like in a different position than you should. So it's a bit hard with this like over curing and stuff, but there are quite good videos on YouTube. Like Elegance has their chemist corner, where Jimmy, the chemist, he talks about exothermic with niche overcure and what happens and how to avoid it, for example. And if you're interested, I would suggest that you look on that video instead. So is there any more questions you're wondering about? You can write in the chat. Otherwise, I will go on to off the cure. So my teacher tells us overcure really happens. We can explain with the chain yeah, so like we are not chemists, so it's quite hard for us to know. And I would say, like, as I said, like I don't know exactly when the overcuring will happen, and if it even happens or whatever. So I do like suggest you like looking on that video of Light Elegance, because he knows better. I'm not a chemist, I'm just doing nails and I want to help you all, guys. Do you buff overlay before putting color? Yeah, so when I do overlays and shape them, I always buff them afterwards, and that's because I want to have a smooth surface. Otherwise, especially when I use quite like pastel colors or like semi-transparent colors, if I don't buff the surface, you will see those lines, filing tracks showing through. It doesn't look quite nice. And also, if you do have some problem with applying your color when you do gel manicure only, you can also wipe the nail and buff it before you apply it, and that will help a lot. How long should a gel manicure versus overlay take? So it depends. Like usually, what takes time is the like nail prep. It's prepping the cuticles and stuff. So it might take an hour, I would say. Like if you have a client, I will book in for 1 hour. But when she comes back for a refill, that might take a bit longer because you're going to remove that gel at first. So the best thing there will be that your client comes in a little bit earlier. You can use the like file off the top coat and then prep her nails with the foil and acetone and let her sit there, and then you can take her, so you save more time. And there are like prepped foils with acetone, not acetone, but with the nail pad inside if you are lazy like me. So that's something you can do. But yeah, so write the questions and I will start discussing the aftercare. So aftercare is like, it can affect a lot, but it's not everything, because a lot has to do with your client's nail type. So clients that has moist nail types and dry nail types, they will have more problems with liftings and durability, and that's how it is. But of course, you can do some things to prevent that from happening. So, for example, if you are a dry person, dry nail type, what I suggest you doing is that you want to have a good amount of both moisture and oils inside your nail, because the thing is, if you think about a keratin layer, they're like flat like this. So between every keratin layer, we have a surrounding lipid layer, which is oil. And what is like, because you know your nails are porous, they can absorb water and moisture. So if you have too little lipids, then your nail will absorb more and grow in the size. And that might be a problem if you don't have lipids inside your nails. So that's why you need to maybe have an air humidifier. I would suggest having that in your office or at home, especially when you live in cold climates or during like less humid weather. So having that, and use cuticle oil like every day. I would suggest using it maybe twice a day, and you can't over oil your cuticles or the nail, because there's only a certain amount the nail will absorb. So there's no risk for getting liftings or something like that. So it's like pour a lot of oil on them. And the thing is that for dry nails, it can actually affect more if you like take care of your nails and using cuticle oil and eating good food and eating vitamins and minerals and stuff in long term, because you will affect the new keratinocyte, the one that is producing the keratin layer, the corneal site. You can affect that to have like better quality, a lot of more moisture and lipids. And the thing is, when you have like a new corneal site, the new corneal site is the one going just underneath the lunula. So the lunula is living cells, it's the keratinocyte, which is creating the corneal site, it's the keratin layers. So the newly formed keratin layers, they are like more flexible, they have more moisture, they have more lipids, they're more healthy. But once they go out, they will be more dry and have less of a good quality. So that's why if you take care of yourself from inside and using a lot of cuticle oil from the start, then it can actually affect in long term, the new nail going down here. So the thing is, when you have a dry nail type that has not taken care of the nails with the oil and stuff, you can't do that much with using oil underneath the nails anyway. So they will usually experience that their nail will like shrink like a raisin, for example. So you might have experienced this because some clients, I remember like back in the days when I didn't know about this, they're like, oh, I use cuticle oil like every like woken minute, but I still experience liftings underneath the nail. I was like, yeah, you need to do it more. So it's not that's not the case. It's because of their nail quality from the beginning. So yeah, so using cuticle oil will help a lot, and that's because the nail won't absorb too much water. It will take enough water inside. The thing is, if you don't have any lipids in your nail, the thing is that your nail will like absorb a lot of water and then evaporate. And what happens is that the nail will usually shrink more after that, and you will have a more drier nail. So that's why you should always use gloves when you're doing your dishes or in the water or something. And yeah, and also make sure to, like, if you have your nails on for like maybe 2 weeks, I do recommend your clients to just file a little bit to make it a little bit shorter, and then just apply a top coat on that, like a nail polish top coat, to prevent them from lifting. And that's because the balance in the nail gets more heavier, so it's easier to damage the nail, like getting cracks and stuff. So usually liftings doesn't happen, but cracks and breakage by tip can happen because of imbalance. So filing them down is better than just keeping them like that. And of course, don't use them as tools, like we all say to our clients, but they don't use them. So yeah, so that's what like my aftercare advices are. But the thing is that, of course, like, your client needs to take care of themselves from the inside and using cuticle oil, but you also have to do your job with doing, like, choosing the right gel, using the right prepping technique, and make sure that they have completely clean nails, both underneath the nail, which is really, really important. Don't forget cleaning underneath the nail. It's very, very underestimated. It will help a lot. And also remove all that skin layers on the nail plate. So yeah, so that's all. So if you have any questions, write in the chat. I have some questions to answer. So what powder can be used for wet cuticles? What do you mean with powder? Do you mean primer maybe? So yeah, answer me what you mean. I don't know what you mean. The red color is actually from Jetset. It's called Black Cherry, I think. I know Lily Nails has one also called Black Cherry, I think. It's like similar. So write your questions in the chat if you have anything. Okay, yeah, that's actually like a Japanese technique. So what that is actually like a baby powder. But if you're going to do that, I recommend using a baby powder that's not any like fragrance in it, because there's a high risk for getting like allergic reactions when you are using products with like fragrance and essential oils and stuff. And yeah, so using like baby powder for moist nail types may be something, but otherwise it's just unnecessary. What's the best shape for shorter nails? So for shorter nails, the one on the meter slide here, having them more, here I have the same, having them more like rounded to the side is the best. And if you have like a little bit longer, let's say having that length, almond shape is better. Usually almond shapes and more rounded nails, they last better by the edges, and that's because like there's no edge to like open up if you like think about a completely square nail. And those edges can easily open up and bump into things and stuff. So shape is also something that's important for long-lasting extensions. So, okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the seminar. I know some of you came late, but I have recorded everything. So write me on my email if you missed it so I can send it to you. And yeah, so if you're going to practice on some gel manicures, you can tag me on Instagram so I can show it to the world. Yeah, tack så mycket Isabella. So have a nice day everybody, and I hear from you soon.